It's season 4 and it's a fresh new episode series for us. Thanks so much for joining us for another episode of Enlightened Conversations, where each week we invite guests to share their views on the world, work and their personal lives in an enlightened way. Our hosts have been chosen especially to role model just how we do an enlightened conversation. Today's episode is hosted by Michelle Lightworker.
Hi everyone, it's Michelle Lightworker here and welcome to Enlightened Conversations. I am super excited today because I invited Emma Turton from the Medical Intuition School to come along and have a chat with me today for a special episode of Enlightened Conversations, where we're going to discuss all things medical intuition and also talk about spiritual toxicity, which I think is a really awesome topic to talk about. Welcome, Emma. I'll introduce you formally, but welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome to have you, and I can't wait to do a deep dive into everything today. So much to talk about. Just for those of you who don't know Emma, I'll just give you a brief bio. This wonderful lady, Emma Turton, is a leading international medical intuitive. She is the founder and director of Medical Intuition School and a USA Today 3-time international #1 bestselling author. Well done. My goodness gracious. She sees inside people with her powerful intuitive eye and guides them to heal from within using medical intuition as a compass for life and health. Merging science with spirituality, Emma pioneered a world-class International Institute of Complementary Therapists approved medical intuition practitioner training program that teaches health professionals, healers, empaths, and intuitives to master their intuition so that they can uncover the real root cause and deeper meaning behind injury and disease and achieving life-changing results with their clients. So profound to have you on today, Emma.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I really resonate. I'm on your newsletter, so I get all your newsletters and I absolutely love every one of them. And I just want to, sometimes I feel like we're sitting across the table when your newsletter comes to me. And the way you write is similar in the way I write, in that we just speak from the heart. We love to remove those barriers of, I don't know, wordiness, just get to the point. I love that about you. I love that you don't really pull any punches. And the way I described it to my husband was, I love Emma because she doesn't pull any punches. She says what's needed to be said. And also she does it in a way that's actually quite loving and unifying. And that's very hard to find today, Emma, in spiritual leaders. It's either they're very polarized. It's like, oh, I've got to be really angry, or I've got to be all fluffy woo-woo. And I'm definitely somewhere in the middle where, yeah, let's speak the truth, dudes, but let's do it in a way that is inclusive. Yeah.
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that. I've always joked that I was born with my foot in my mouth and have no filter. So yeah, because I do just say how I see it. And that has got me in trouble in the past, but it's clearly what makes me a really good medical intuitive as well, because I speak to the point straight away. And yeah, I'm always coming from a place of love, but that doesn't mean fluff and light and, you know, everything's roses, because particularly in health, that's not always the case.
Exactly. So, there's so much going on there, isn't it? And often it requires a bit of courage, like, you know, from the point of view of, Jesus, I'm going to make a decision. Do I say this? How do I say this? And how do I deliver this? I had a sort of awakening when I was on Soul TV, and we did these things called Soul Fridays, where we'd all gather together on a platform and we'd have an audience. And it was the first time I was really kind of in that situation where people would be asking me a question. And oh my God, I just started to feel and see like what you were talking about. Like I feel it in my body and go, oh, what am I feeling? And I was actually getting I would say it just landed on me like medical intuition. It just landed on me. I didn't even know what was going on. And it was because I was in an environment where I was open to helping people at that level. Yeah, I was on the spot. Let's just say I'm on platform. I've got people in front of me. And I'm either making that decision now. How do I say this? How do I phrase this? How do I do this? It's genuinely sensitive and compassionate, but at the same time not really denying what's going on. Yeah.
Yes, and that is the absolute challenge. And honor your experience with that, because when you're put on the spot and you don't expect it, I've been there myself, because it's a similar, way that medical intuition came on to me, is that I didn't really know what was happening. Didn't have any words for it, hadn't heard of a medical intuitive, didn't really know what any of that meant, and really had no way of knowing how to even language the things to the people that I was sitting with, and they were clients. They were seeing me as a physiotherapy and nutrition perspective, because that's my background. And, to have suddenly information land that, the reason that their cholesterol is high is because they have this issue with their ex-husband. And I didn't know they had an ex-husband. They hadn't told me this. That type of thing landing, and you think, I don't have permission to share this, right? Because there's not been the usual conversations around it, and I don't really know how to language that. And so I felt very much at the beginning that I had to hold back. Because of that same reason, because I felt like I didn't know what I could share and what I couldn't share, what I should share, what I shouldn't share, what was mine to be able to speak to somebody, particularly, if it wasn't, at that point, it was like a barrage of information coming from all people all around me. I had no boundaries. And I didn't understand that I had a choice in those boundaries at that point. And so you can't just walk up to a total stranger and say, I see this going on in your body. People do it all the time, right? I've had people come up and do that sort of thing with me, and I'm just like, oh, dude, you got to work on your boundaries.
Exactly.
But when that does land, it can be quite scary, and knowing how to approach a very sensitive topic in a gentle, kind, and compassionate way that you need to understand how it might land and what can happen because of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why you've got a school, and that's why
right.
I think when I spoke to you last, we were just chatting about something. It was probably about 6 years ago, and I just remember you saying you were thinking about starting a school. I was so excited for you, and so much has happened since then. You've just gone from strength to strength. It's been so exciting watching your journey. Tell me about it. Like, what happened? I'm curious, just from my own perspective. I'm sure everybody else listening is too.
Yeah. So what I found was, as I was working as a medical intuitive, so I left my previous career. I was full-time as a medical intuitive, and I was building up my business and really learning the craft and the art of medical intuition and finding my way. And there was really no mentoring that could happen. I reached out to medical intuitives all over the world, and no matter how much I was willing to pay, they're really hard to find. A lot of them, they're hard to contact. They don't respond. They just want nothing to do with the world, because obviously of their experiences and their gifts and what they can do. But no matter how much I was willing to pay, no one would provide any mentoring for me. And my waiting list was getting longer and longer and longer, to the point that it got to like a 4 to 6 month waiting list at any given time. And in health, that's a problem. Whether it's conventional health or whether it's unconventional health, that's a problem. So I would have people reaching out saying, but please, can I see you? I've got this urgent thing. And I was starting to work nights, weekends, days, all over the place, and it wasn't working so well for me. And I realized I needed people to refer to. I needed to be able to say, here's a person I trust. I can't see you right now, but they can. I can't heal the world. I just literally don't have the capacity to do all of the work and see all of the people one-to-one. So I needed to train people, because although there were people working in health that I did trust, there was no one who worked like me. There was no one who did the work the way I did. There was no one who saw the body in the way I see it.
I remember talking to you about that, and saying I'd really like to merge the very scientific side as well. And I was really excited about that.
Yeah, because most people are either one or the other, and never the twain shall meet, right? It's either science and medicine, or it's spirituality and healing, or metaphysics. There's never much crossover in between, and I don't see them as separate. That's an illusion. So I see that the two are intricately linked. And in fact, they're not actually two, they're one. The science is just as spiritual as the spirituality, and the spirituality is just scientific as the science.
I concur.
Yeah. And so, and you know, when you, like, I've got a science degree, you can't take the science out of the girl. It comes with me, right?
Love that.
And so it's my approach to everything. And yet I'm deeply spiritual, and the work I do is next level, unusual to the standard person who, you know, just goes to a normal health practitioner and lives in the conventional health world. So, yeah, so I needed more people to refer to. And so I realized the only way I could do that was to train people. And I had some eager people ready and waiting and champing at the bit to work with me to learn what I do, because they had worked with me as clients. Many of them, although not all, but many of them already worked with clients in some capacity, not necessarily in health, but in some capacity, and wanted to take things to the next level.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so that's how it started.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I remember in one of your newsletters, you were talking about your dad, and he had an accident and he had a brain injury. Was that in the last 6 years as well? Was that pre the 6 years?
It's coming up to 4 years now.
Wow. So that was probably a huge catalyst as well, because I remember reading how that spurred you on.
It did. And it happened, like I gave my very first course, and that at that point it wasn't medical intuition practitioner training. It was the precursor, which is called Activate Your Inner Healer, which is all about using medical intuition in your own life and learning how to see the body in this way in your own body and your own family. I'd given the very first masterclass of the very first round of that, and then went out with my friends to Prodigy concert, which turned out to be the second last Prodigy concert of all time, because the lead singer took his own life only a few weeks later.
Wow.
And then the next day, my dad had his accident. And so I just started this course, and this course was, you know, several months long. And I thought, well, what the hell? What do I do? I'm obliged to all these people. We have to continue. And I started questioning everything about medical intuition, everything I knew, because
getting goosebumps.
He had, you know, multiple brain surgeries. He almost died. I think it was 9 times. Like, it was insane how many times he nearly died. Wow. And was in a coma for 9 days. And they said we should switch him off at 7. They said that there's no way he'll wake. 2 days later, after we made the decision to keep the machine running, he woke up. And you know, although he's had a very hard road of recovery, and he spent, you know, the best part of 6 months in hospital, in rehab, and when he left hospital, they said he'd never walk again, and we'd have to strap into a wheelchair because he couldn't be trusted. Within a month, he was walking. He was kicking a soccer ball. Within another month, he was able to do a lot more things unassisted. Within another month, he was showering himself, which they said he would never be capable of. And it's just like, we've had 4 bonus years with my dad, who turns 80 next year. Wow. At a time in his life when most people are declining, he's still improving in function and fitness and mental capacity. He still jokes, he still cracks dad jokes, he still is there to give advice. He's not the same person. He is, we call him Daryl 2.0. His name's Daryl. Yeah. We call him Daryl 2.0. But he's altered, but he's still my dad. And we have this beautiful bonus time with him. And it's like, I wouldn't change that for the world. And what I learned through that process of being in hospital was that the medical intuition, being able to view inside my dad and connect with him while he was in a coma, or while he couldn't speak for himself because he was on a ventilator, I saved his life multiple times, where I stood my ground and said to his medical team, no way, you're doing another test right now. This is something is happening in his brain right now. You need to do this scan right now. And, oh no, we have no sign of that. We can leave it till tomorrow. Just see how he goes. No, staying by his bed until you test him. And sure enough, he was having massive strokes inside and was dying. He was in the process of dying again. So that happened multiple times. And up until then, I thought medical intuition was a bit kind of foofy. Even though I'd been working in it full time, even though I'd had incredible results with my clients, on a level, I was still believing that it was about headaches, knee pain, you know, just simple health issues. I didn't realize that the skills that we could have and develop especially in the acute health setting, for health professionals, it could be life-saving if we could train all of the people in ICU to do health the way I do health. Sure, still have all of the conventional health tools and resources at your hand, still have the high-level surgical skills and life-saving skills, but to be able to connect with a client in this way and trust your intuition and be allowed to act on it. The amount of changes in health that would happen because of that, the amount of lives that could be saved, or, funding not wasted because somebody was gone already, because they actually knew, not because they just made assumptions or based things on research and what a normal person of that age is expected to do.
Yeah.
It would just change health completely. That's when I realized just how freaking important this work was. And that's when I went, right, that's it. We're doing practitioner level. This is next level. We have to go there. And I'm teaching what I've learned through this process.
Thanks, Dad. Thanks, Daryl 2.0. Like, it's amazing. And in some of your newsletters too, you talk about we're not being punished. This isn't a test. And I think often we're very narcissistic when it comes to health. Oh my God, oh poor me. Oh my God, why? And even the spiritual community, when we're talking about spiritual toxicity, talking about, what needs to be healed, what needs to be healed. And often we think of potentially chronic pain or chronic illness as a punishment, or as a why haven't I healed it yet? Or as and it can be because there are other things you need to learn, and other people need to learn. Just say yourself, you needed to learn to trust your intuition and to deliver this on a bigger level for other people. It's interesting, isn't it, that we can tend to box illness into a I'm broken category, and this is where we talk about toxic spirituality too, as being that attitude in that I'm constantly looking to be fixed. I'm constantly thinking I'm broken in some way.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it plays to our primal fundamental fear of being inherently broken. It plays to that, and so we believe that we are, and it is our programming. And culturally we've been taught that when we have a health problem, something's wrong with us, that our body is letting us down.
Yes.
We must take the medicine and soldier on, right? We're taught this culturally. We're not taught to listen and respond to what our body's asking of us. Our symptoms are simply our language, and our body is communicating our intuition through that language of symptoms. It's one of the ways your intuition communicates with you. And so if you learn to listen and respond to that and set up the environment for your body to be supported, it supports you back. And the universe isn't punitive. It doesn't blame you. It's not punishing you. It's never trying to make you suffer for having made a bad choice in the past, which I think is the other thing that comes up with medical intuition often as well, is that you can, read all the charts and things, and you think, oh, well, it's because you had, this thing happened in the past and you're still holding unforgiveness, and it's your fault, essentially, that you've got this problem. And that couldn't be more toxic, and it couldn't be further from the truth. It's not your fault. Life just happens. Health issues just happen. We have this faulty limiting belief that we're entitled to perfect health all the time, right? And that's a faulty limiting belief. Life happens, and from that we learn, from that we grow, and we're here to grow. It's how we choose to grow that changes for each one of us. And if we approach things from the perspective of I'm broken, I need to constantly work on my wounds, we keep going in a circle back around to the same wound and scratching the same itch and staying in that navel gazing circle of never breaking free to heal, which is why we start the work in the first place. We want to shift our perspective. We want to shift our life and our reality. But if we stay in the same perspective, that never changes. It's only when we take action to change. Experience the change.
And that's really good, like when you say it that way, because like I experience like knee and shoulder problems, and when I meditate on them, I just get, you'll have these for a while. There's other lessons you have to learn about what you can and can't do and why, and that will make you do other things that you wouldn't have thought of. So you technically have to kind of do the best you can with it, basically. And I thought, oh, okay. And when it's put to me like that, I'm like, oh, I'm more accepting of it. I'm more accepting of it not being something that I'm not looking at, I guess you could say. If we're talking toxic spirituality, it's, well, what aren't you looking at? Look, you should know, you should feel it, you should fix it, it should be healed, you should be perfect. It's all that sort of should, perfection. But what I'm realizing as I'm 52, as I grow older, what I'm realizing is, of course, things are going to deteriorate or what. I mean, of course, things will be a lot healthier if we focus on our intuition in other ways too. Like, I'm a really healthy person, but it's like, I think we tend to kind of think that there's something we're not doing right all the time if our body's not working.
Yes.
When it comes to spiritual circles, and you may get judgment from other people, and they might think, well, you're just not doing it right, or what have you. And I think it kind of goes against what we're talking about here, which is when you're activating your inner healer, when you're switched on to what your messages are and what is relevant for you. That's your personal information that is perfect for your journey, right? Perfect for your growth, what you were just saying, perfect for your evolution and the next step that you need to take. What's my need telling me? Well, it's telling me I'm getting old. That's okay. I'm doing other things that help it. Like, went for a bike ride yesterday. It was lovely. And I can still do things. It's just, I just have to moderate what I do and then turn my attention to what I'm being called to do. And that's how I saw that accident with your dad. I felt like when I was talking to Leanne, Barefoot Medium, last week, we were talking about how my previous conversation with Anne Allison, like literally, I'm on the call, just about to say bye on the Zoom call for our Enlightened conversation. What I didn't know was happening, but I got told very strongly to stop recording now, was Anne's mum had fallen in the other room because she had her nurse was there, anything, but she'd had a fall. And we were talking about how when we're called, energies, like things happen to our family. Like, we were literally talking about that. And then Leanne and I were talking about it last week, and she said the same thing had happened to her. She'd been asked to do the 11/11 activation last Friday, and the weekend before, her mum had gone into hospital, and she said to her dad, don't you go into hospital too? And he went into hospital the next day after that for something else. We can't really stop what the power of what stepping into our purpose does. And we need, it's not being punished. It's just that if our family members are serving a purpose in that, then they'll show that in some response to that. And I do believe that Emma, my mum, passed away last year, and I do believe that leading up to her passing 4 years, I had a lot of health issues I had to deal with mum. And then leading into where I'm stepping into next, I believe it was a perfect time of passing. Now I see that. And I think if we stop sort of making it all about the world's out to get us, what aren't we doing right? And we look at it from the perspective of, actually, the world is confirming everything that we need to do next, or just did, like you did, like, starting the activation training. Your dad's confirming it, and then he's leveling it up for you and saying, hey, here you go, here's some more stuff you can test it out on, hun, because you probably need to have these solid life examples. And my mum was doing the same kind of thing as well before her passing.
Yeah, that's so beautiful. I'm so sorry that you lost your mum. It's
just
so
feel
beautiful.
like she's with me. She's with me everywhere now. Like, I mean, she's got work to do on the other side, and she was in Sydney and I'm up in Queensland. I kept saying to her, come on, Mum, come up to Queensland so we can hang out, so it's not so hard. And she just was from the Greek community and just wanted to stay. And I totally honored that. Didn't want to shame her on her choices or anything like that, because that was how she felt guided to live out the rest of her life. But now she's here all the time. and she's had so many realizations, and it's so lovely. So I just feel like she's more present. I think the main grieving I had on Mum passing was more about, she didn't really 100% get me while she was alive to the point where I would have wanted her to get me. You know what I mean? So there's a little bit of grief over that, because she gets me now. It's like a no-brainer. Oh gosh, I know who you are now. So from that perspective, I'm like a bit of a lost time moments occasionally. Wish she'd known me. When I see a memory come up on Facebook, or when I'm celebrating something from the past that I wished Mum was more kind of connected to. That's when I have my moments of grief. But I'm more about with our conversation today, that sort of sense of stepping out of feeling almost like a duty to grieve from pain, more of a realization that we heal through joy. Because I'm getting grief come up when I'm in a joyful space about a memory and wishing she was there, and that's a joy. It's almost like join me in my joy feeling. And I moved away from that addiction to pain and misery for healing, probably I would say 2002 would probably be, because I was working as a counsellor, helping people through trauma and addictive disorders. And I was hearing a lot about people being addicted to their pain. And I went, oh, no, I don't want to be in that kind of therapist. Thank you very much. And I potentially don't believe that anyway. So why would I want that? So I found that for me, joy really became a catalyst for healing. So if there's something getting in the way of our joy, sure, let's address it. But let's go for joy. Why not? Like, why not be in the joy? Is there a reason why we shouldn't?
Yeah. Well, the world will give you plenty of reasons. All you have to do is switch on the news, right? The world will give you plenty of reasons why you shouldn't be in joy, because when we're in joy, we don't want for anything. When we're in joy, we can't really be sold to. We can't be shamed into buying something we don't need. When we're in joy, we feel fulfilled. And so our culture, our media, everything around us is really geared towards keeping us out of that joy. The health system is the same. We're not really good customers if we're actually fully healed. We don't spend any money on pharmaceuticals if we feel 100% all the time. And so to keep us in that state of pain, to keep us in that state of suffering, is very self-serving to these systems that are in place. When we choose to disconnect from that, like you have, when we choose to focus on the joy as opposed to the pain and the suffering, and to heal through joy as opposed to trying to heal through pain and suffering, both are paths, both are valid paths, but we get a choice, right?
Yeah.
And healing through joy doesn't necessarily mean we won't experience discomfort, because sometimes being joyful is really uncomfortable too.
100%. Like I mean, there's moments where I'm, I feel almost guilty for feeling so joyful. Like, why am I so joyful all the time? Like, and that's a hangover from, an upbringing where, it's not okay. It's almost like, you're not worthy to have all that you want, really, that kind of belief system. And so, yes, I agree with you 1,000,000%, because stepping into joy comes with its healing. It actually does. I think from the perspective of, there's so much going through my mind at the moment, just from the perspective of allowing that abundance of energy into our being. And I know that in traditional Chinese medicine, they talk about that the heart is actually the holder of the joy emotion, so to speak. And for me, in terms of energy centers or chakras, whatever we want to call them, portals of light, the heart chakra for me, the way it affects the rest of the system of the body is it's the great connector. It allows everything to connect properly. And when you've got that joy coming through at that intensity and that level of absolute immersion of purity of, absolutely letting it in, well, it enlivens the rest of everything else, because what it's doing is saying, oh, you're allowing me to be in my joy from the heart chakra space. So I'm the great connector. So if I'm able to connect to all my other energy centers, I'm going to be what will I be spreading to them? I'll be spreading joy everywhere. So then if you've got any, I guess, let's say barriers, internal energetic barriers in any of those to self-worth, joy, receiving of any kind, of course those are going to be challenged. They're going to maybe present a symptom. Maybe they'll be inflamed and go away. I don't want to look at you until you've noticed what I have to say.
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely true. And you're very right about the heart being, instrumental to keeping the flow going in the rest of the energy system as well, because the heart is the center of the physical energy system. We have the 3 energy centers above and the 3 energy centers below. The heart is central. It's also the widest point of our field, and it's the part of us that meets somebody else's energy first, and they see our heart first, and we see their heart first. Our hearts connect before we even know that there is another person nearby. And our bodies, our intuition can sense and receive information and send information through that space before we even know there is another person in our field. And it's absolutely, it's instrumental to the functioning of the rest of the system. And when we are things like, I see grief as being like the other side of the coin of love. Grief is we can't, I've heard it's written as when we aren't able to express our love to somebody in living form, that's when we experience grief. And it's as though we have so much love, but we can't pour it out. There's no one there to rain it on or to say the words to and have them received. And I think that's a really beautiful way to see grief.
I love that.
And I see all those emotions. I don't see them as positive and negative, good and bad either. I see them as all necessary, all required, and not to be squashed down. I'm a big believer that we shouldn't be putting spiritual band-aids on top of uncomfortable feelings like hatred, like anger, like frustration, resentment, all of the things that are in the spiritual world often bundled up and put to one side, put a lid on it. You're not supposed to feel that. Let's say some positive mantras over the top, which is what I call the band-aid. Top, just pretend it's not there. La 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 la.
No, it's not happening. No.
I'm
okay. I'm okay. You're okay.
Exactly. And that causes physiological damage.
It does,
that
indeed.
Creates imbalances within the physical body. And that's what creates illness and injury when we stuff it down, not because we feel it, not because we've got reasons to experience it, but because we aren't allowing ourselves to fully embody, process, witness it, love it, be compassionate with ourselves for having felt that, and walk through that fire to the other side.
Exactly. And like if one of our energy centers is giving the heart you haven't connected with me for so long and you're meant to be the great connector, so I'm going to have some feelings about that now that you're knocking on my door. Well, what's going on? And it's like, that's how I believe we need to look at our organs, how we need to look at our energy centers. They're people. They've got a process. And I agree with you. In my training, I've got a process for grief called Grieving Restores Our Wholeness. So it's GROW. The anagram GROW. And it's cool. It's great, hey. And it's just like, we've got the fear, we've got the anger, we've got the sadness, and then we've got the joy. So it's like, and they're all variants of that along the way. Fear looks like avoidance, it looks like outbursts, it looks like frozenness and numbness, and anger looks like that blaming self or guilt or that kind of energy, or to the heart chakra that we talked about before, turning up our nose and going, work for it, bitch, that kind of thing. And then the sadness, yes, that cry for the love we couldn't have expressed, and potentially that sort of coming to that point where it's never going to be in that form again, like that level of depression. So I'm hitting that sort of sense of hopelessness. Okay, I've got it. Okay, but then the joy of, okay, well, what other form is this taking? How can what have I learned from it? How am I using this? And so I think that great respect for that process is the opposite of spiritual toxicity, which is the judgment of perfectionism, the judgment that things are broken and need to be fixed. It's not. Things are just in that process. They're just in that flow. They're just in that, really, I think, crying out for that, actually. Like that anger is crying out for work for it. Like, what does it need? Like, it's more about let's have a chat. Let's go there and have a chat about how you're feeling right this second, and what do you need, and how can I give that to you, and how can we make this consistent, and how can we avoid this not happening again? That's just like any good parent would work through those steps. Hey,
that's right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I completely agree with that. Yeah.
And so when it comes to your what you're up to now. Tell me what you're excited about, what you're venturing into, and what's happening ahead for you.
So right now I'm right in the middle of a live round of Activate Your Inner Healer. So this is the first fully live, doing the trainings live round that I've done in 4 years. So I've been running it in the background all this time, but the trainings are all recorded. So this is the first time that I've had this full immersion of people learning again with me for the first time. And quite a few people have jumped back in to redo and up level, because it's I've evolved a lot in 4 years. So so that's currently running, and so is medical intuition practitioner training. That's in its 3rd year right now as well. I have graduates all over the world who are amazing medical intuitive practitioners, all of them specializing in different areas, so which is beautiful. They've all got such a wealth of experience that they bring.
I love that.
Yeah, there's no competition at all between them. They all are they all have strengths in different areas, and they all have experience with different specialties. So it's a fantastic referral network around the world, which is great. And I've got lots of little courses that I run from time to time as well, and you can access all of those on my website. But I haven't quite announced it yet, but I did land it with me, because I've just come out the end of my friend Tamala Ridge's Detox Purify, and in that I always get these huge downloads and this inspiration of the next thing, and so I had this thing land, and I went, of course, it makes perfect sense, but not now, because it's right in the lead up to Christmas, so it'll be next year. But it's so starting in February, it's a course specifically for people who work in health, to release the wounded healer archetype. So, so often people who work in health, that's their shadow side, right? So they push themselves, and they can't often find a way to not have to experience all of the illness in themselves and break their body to be of service to others. And so Unshakable Service is coming in February, and it's a course specifically for people who work in health and how to release that wounded healer archetype. Because the more we can release that, the more we can step up in our level of service and be of service to the world. So you're literally hearing it here first. I haven't even announced it.
Oh my God.
You're on my newsletter. I haven't even said it. I put a little tiny PPPS. I'm getting addicted to the PSs in my newsletter. Stay tuned. Something's about to land. It's that. So.
Oh, that is so exciting. I'm so excited. Thank you for the honor and the privilege of that, of being an exclusive. I'm super excited because when I was doing my practice as a counselor many moons ago, like in the early 2000s, one of the things I realized was I was just attracting so many nurses and so many counselors and so many health professionals to my door with burnout, and they were just burning out, and they didn't know how to manage their energy and not burn out and not take on other people's stuff, and not, I guess, fall into that sort of I've got to save the world category. It's being of service is awesome, and I love it, and I can never not be. I just kind of, that's my thing. I just feel that's my purpose. But it's different. It's a different mindset, isn't it? From I have to save everybody, to no, I want to be of the best service I possibly can. And usually you find with people that want to be of service, they actually people who want to save the world, they actually do want to be of service. So it's not like a conflict. It's just that it's gone, as you said, it's gone over to the shadow side, where they've not realized that they're actually part of the world, and they need to make sure that they remember themselves as well.
That's right. That's absolutely right. We could so often nail ourselves to the cross in our service to others, and we don't even realize we're doing it. In fact, if particularly in conventional health, I remember my days running, where I was running 2 wards as a physiotherapist, and I was the only physio they saw across those 2 wards. It was general medical at the busiest hospital here in Perth. And I was run off my feet and literally running from room to room, which is really dangerous in a hospital. I might add, running from room to room, running to try and keep up with trying to keep people functioning. In general medicine, physiotherapist does pretty much everything. So I was going from, stroke rehab to early neuro rehab to, suctioning so people could breathe, helping people to breathe, all kinds of stuff, orthopedics, post-surgical, people who just come out of ICU, step down, it was everything across the board. And it was high level, random, having to run everywhere. And I was encouraged to stay extra hours. I was encouraged to give up my 30-minute lunch break in the middle of my 9-hour day. And I was encouraged to come in early and stay late for no extra pay. And then, of course, we had the weekend shifts we had to do as well. So we weren't just working 5 days a week. Sometimes it would be 6 or 7. That was encouraged. And so, of course, I burnt out. Of course, everyone around me burnt out. And, that was nothing compared to what the young doctors were doing when they were doing 80, 90-hour weeks. Yeah. That there was absolutely nothing compared to what I saw the other staff doing. So, of course, in conventional health, we burn out, but it also happens in the world of healing. It also happens in that world where, because we often feel things very, very deeply, if we are deeply empathic, if we are highly sensitive, and we've been drawn to work in the world of, intuition or healing or intuitive reading, we can so often find ourselves energetically connected to those that we see and have all our energy drained and just burn ourselves out. And I've had so many conversations with people who've said, I just don't think I can do this anymore. And to be honest, I had got to that point when I first started in medical intuition too, that my partner said to me, obviously you can't work in this field. It's breaking your body. And I was like, that can't be the only way. It can't be the only way. And so I've had to go on a learning journey with that myself as well, where I used to have a pattern with every launch of every course that I launched that was new, that I would go into, I'd end up being carried out of a jazz club on a stretcher, ending up in an ambulance having a seizure, or I'd have a massive health crisis and get pneumonia and have to stop. It would just be just so much drama, all of it real, all of it very visible, measurable, quite scary. But that was my pattern for a long time. And the last couple of years, that's not been my pattern. I've broken through that to the other side, and I can see very clearly why. And so I'm going to share that in Unshakable Service, because if more of us can not sacrifice ourselves to be of service, then we can serve more people more deeply. We can change more lives, and the ripple effect around the world will be huge.
Absolutely. And if you want your students to hear anything from me, let me know, because I'm more than happy to just be of service in that respect as well. Because I've just, what does it do for our intuition when we don't allow ourselves to stop and breathe and be and connect? It just shuts us off. And so to move forward in the health world, there needs to be a new normal of how we actually respect health workers and their intuition, like their whole selves, because we can't expect, we can teach them the skills, but we can't expect them if they don't have their own boundaries in play, and that's their business, minding their own boundaries, vibration, business, health, energy, all that. They need to do that so that then they can unlock those gifts, because the gifts, as you know, and I love that you share that they're already there for us all. So, we share that in common, Emma. I believe that too. And I believe that we all have, that's the treasure trove that we're entitled to. And it's also the treasure trove that will help society heal, like in terms of our health system. So until we actually, and I think it's happening in gradients, like I can see it happening in gradients. I just want to spend a little bit of time talking about your opinion on, and even your experience on leaders and how they can be healers or hurters in the world, in business, in their own family, if they don't learn to tap into their intuition or honor the intuition of other people. Would you mind sharing that for me?
Oh, sure. And you're so right. Healers or hurters is a really great way of putting it. I've experienced both. If we don't take that we don't take that responsibility ourselves, if we don't take ownership of our own energy and our own standard of ethics, our own belief system, if we don't honor another person's boundaries, another person's belief system, another person's standard of right and wrong or ethics, if we don't honor that, then in truth, we aren't a leader. So it takes taking great ownership and responsibility of your own stuff and your ability to influence others in an ethical way to be a leader, as far as I'm concerned. Otherwise, particularly in the spiritual world, otherwise it's what I call the spiritual ego narcissist is what happens. And, I speak about narcissism and empaths, and I speak about that quite a lot. And I've got lots of videos on that if anybody's interested in that too. But that's what that generally is, because it's an unethical use of your energetic connections with those around you, an unethical influence over others that is breaching energetic boundaries on all levels. And that it's never just one-sided. I want to say that, because I don't believe that narcissists are the bad guy, which is very different to other people. And here I'm talking about the garden variety narcissists, not the narcissistic personality disorder, which is a different thing. So that garden variety narcissist is an energy imbalance. An empath isn't an energy imbalance, but an imbalanced empath is. And they have
psycho. They've gone crazy.
They have no boundaries. They're all love and light. They go, here, have my energy. Here, have my energy. Here, I'll do this. I can do all that. No problems. I'll take all your pain. Many of us that are sensitive are probably going, oh my God, that's me. But unfortunately or interestingly, the imbalanced energy pattern of the narcissist and that imbalanced empath fit together in a symbiotic
relationship. Like Velcro, right?
Stuck in there. And
we work out the imbalanced empath Velcro, it slides off.
Yes, exactly. That's really beautifully said, because Velcro is so sticky until it's not. And it's a mutually beneficial arrangement. There is permission given on both sides energetically, even though often on one side it's not a conscious level.
Exactly. And that's where understanding those little veils and peeling those veils back, the layers of who we are, then we get to understand, hang on a second, if I didn't have something unhealed inside of me that needed that Velcro to be sorted out, I wouldn't need to have this lesson. They're just doing me a favor to notice my little wound over here that I just need to tend to. And then that becomes, it's less of the blame game. Oh, you're the narcissist and I'm the empath, isn't it? It's more of a, no. Obviously I've got a little bit to learn here and you're helping me along. Thanks for that. And then it becomes more, for me, less of a, I hate that person for what they said or did. It was annoying and I don't really want that in my life. But it's not about they're the bad and I'm the good, and that kind of black and white thinking, I guess you could say.
Absolutely. I completely agree with that. And, I see that as it's like the lesson that we needed to learn. Yes, it would have been nicer sometimes to have learned it in a different way. But until we know where we end and others begin, we can't actually prevent some of those things from happening. And often the first time in our life we're actually shown that we never knew where we ended and other people began is when we have that kind of interaction and it goes horribly wrong, because to begin with, it often feels wonderful.
Wonderful, huh?
Yeah.
It's so Velcro. I love it. Oh, yeah.
It's so charming. And it's just the most perfect energetic match, and everything in your body lights up and says, yes, this is it. This is got
to be it, right?
It's got to be it. It feels so right because of that tessellation that happens in the energy field. And so it feels amazing to bask in the glow of that energetic imbalance. But until you have that wrenched apart, and it's often physically, emotionally very painful to have that wrench in that relationship, and it's often between, it can be between leader and follower, particularly with that spiritual ego narcissist. Until you have that, you don't realize, you never had any idea where your boundaries were or what was meant to be inside, what you actually feel like in your energy when there's not that influence from outside, what it feels like when that comes in, and having that awareness in real time to see it actually happening, so that you can go, actually, that I have no room for that in my life.
Yeah, and it is a feeling, hey, because back in the day when I was doing the trauma and addictive recovery, I specialized in love addiction recovery, and so I'd get a lot of people come in and go, I just can't not have that person in my life. Like, I get I'm addicted to them, I get I'm Velcro, I get they're the thing, but I'm not there yet. I can't leave, and this is why a lot of people in DV relationships can't leave as well, because they just haven't sorted the Velcro out. They haven't. If we're looking at Velcro, say it's got gaps, to fill, they haven't learned how to feel that wholeness yet. But when they do, and I never used to encourage people, just leave, let's work on you. Let's take the focus off them for a bit. Let's just work on you. Let's get you to understand who you are, where your boundaries are, what your needs are and wants are, how you can love yourself better, how you can set your boundaries better, and how you can moderate your own reality. Let's work on those 5 things first. And then once you've got yourself more attuned to who you really are and you feel whole, then it's not going to be an issue of when you do what. It's going to be an issue of how you want to move forward. It's a really different story, isn't it? And a really different feeling for them. It's not like a ripping away of that Velcro. It's more like it's sort of sliding away, and it's almost off-putting when they feel that bumping up. They're saying, oh, it's bumping up against me and I can't handle it. It's a completely different feeling. Their energy system's actually working in another way intuitively for them to move away.
That's right, because they just no longer have time for that. They no longer have availability for that kind of treatment. And it's a completely different thing to having to wrench yourself away and, run for your life. Just going, actually, not really even sure why I'm here in the first place. No.
Yeah. and those energetic attachments or cords where they're potentially sucking from the narcissist, they start to fall away. So they're plugging into other things, and that are healthy, hopefully healthy for them. And then there's a natural falling away. And I think in terms of leadership, like on a global consciousness or even on a work consciousness, where people see the leaders, as you said, like they're not leading if they're not encouraging you to be a whole person, to honor your values, to honor your boundaries, to be more of who you are, be your unique self and offer your uniqueness to the role. I think that as a society, the more we get that on a employee level or even on a global citizen level, I think that's when the leaders, we step up the requirement that our leaders need to have. We step up that energy ourselves. So we're in the box seat, really, when we look at it from that perspective, rather than the victims to a leadership consciousness that is the opposite of what you just described.
That's exactly right. When we take that ownership ourselves of our own boundaries and we know what we stand for, then it's so much easier to, cultivate the leadership that serves that.
It is.
I completely agree with you. Completely.
So we're normalizing conversations around that in general society, and that's we the people. Then it sort of I find energetically it starts to bubble up, like it's like this thing that we're creating, a swell, like a sea and ocean of consciousness that belies that leadership and where it needs to come from. It's been really interesting, actually. I know we've got to go, but it's just been really interesting watching the leaders of the G20 get together, and India's hosting it next year, or it's changing over on the 1st of December, and they're already saying, look, this is what we're encouraging, is one planet, one family. Like they're already doing that oneness talk, and I'm loving that. It is hitting us in so many corners of leadership globe. On some level, it is hitting us, and it's highlighting where the gaps are. But as a society, I think our spiritual toxicity can come to play when we're blaming the leaders for not being there yet. So I think we need to watch our thinking and try and be as supportive as we possibly can of that coming into fruition.
Yes, I absolutely agree with you there. I think taking that responsibility, as opposed to being in the them versus us blaming game, all is one, right? The law of mentalism holds true. So the leader is a reflection of us. If we are just coming at them in the same way that we see them as coming at us, then we're not going to change anything. We're going to keep that separation going, and there's not going to be an evolution together. So we have to take responsibility for our part in that.
Yeah. And I sort of like, I've got this visual, I've never had this visual before, Emma, but I've got this visual of like, you know, the Velcro stuff. It's like we're all holding a piece of it, and the leader's the one that sits on top and so we need to change the Velcro to change the leader. So I kind of feel like that our conversation on the Velcro has come full circle there.
It has. I'm going to go and play with some Velcro because I want to see what else comes through. I think it's a really beautiful analogy for so many things, particularly energetically. The Velcro is a really beautiful example because, you know, it's got the hooks and the loops. It's got, you know, we put the loops out because we're allowing something to hook into us. We put the hooks out because we're ready to hook into somebody else's energy. And it's having that responsibility with the choice we're making there. We always have a choice who we connect in with and how, and what we bring to the table in terms of our beliefs, our fears, our choices, our thoughts. All of that comes with us in our metaphysical body. And so to have that radical responsibility around that, and ownership of who we are and what we stand for as a part of that interaction. If we all did that, the world would be a completely different place, right?
I absolutely agree. I love that. And it is all about letting it start with yourself and activating yourself to be that person of healing. And I'm really super excited to share this space with you. I just feel so honored, Emma, to chat with you today and to have such a wonderful discussion. I feel a bit teary, actually. I'm feeling a little bit, so blessed. And that's how my joy comes out sometimes, is through joyful tears. So
it overflows through your eyes. I love it.
Thank you so much for joining me today. And if you'd like to find Emma, are you on Facebook, Emma?
Yes.
Turton Health. Is that just want to get your connect with Emma at facebook.com/Emma Turton Health, and that's EMMATURTON Health. Yes.
Yes, that's my handle on Facebook, and you can find me on Instagram as emmaturton.medicalintuition.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for joining us, and big love to you. And I'm happy to support you in any way I can with having another person talk to your students if they would like to hear more about what was it? Tell me. Unshakable Healers, was it?
Unshakable Service. That's the new
Unshakable Service. I love that. Yes.
I'm also taking enrollments for my next round of medical intuition practitioner training for 2023. So I've already got a few enrollments in there, and it's a capped enrollment of 12. So it's a nice intimate course, and it's a 12-month training. So if anyone is interested in that, who's listening and who's feeling lit up by this whole concept, and feels very aligned with the way I work, then feel free to reach out and I can give you a lot more information about that.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much again, Emma, and thanks everybody for joining us. We'll see you all again next week.
Thank you so much. I deeply appreciate it.
Thanks, Emma.